Hello again, I'm Shamila from Can Do Teach, and as promised, in this video I'm going to be going through the solution to the challenge I set in the last video. In the last video, I set you all the challenge of using completing the square to solve this equation. Okay? So I hope you've all had a go at it. If you haven't, pause the video now, I'll wait, and you can go back and try it. So to solve this, the first thing I have to do is deal with this a because it's a non-monic quadratic, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factorize the a out of the first two terms, okay? So I go a outside, so then I divide each term by a, so this one is x squared, and this one has to be b divided by a times x still, and then the c just stays there because I haven't done anything to that. Okay. Next, now I've got this part which I can complete the square on. So I'll just make some space for myself here. Plus c equals 0. Okay, now I'm going to think here I need to have half of the coefficient of x squared. So I literally do just that. B divided by 2a, so that's half of this, squared. And now I need to subtract the exact same thing. Alright, so I haven't changed anything, but I've made this part a complete square. Now, I can go ahead and collapse that into x plus b over 2a, so the square root of this, and the square root of this squared minus this whole thing. Now instead of just writing that again to save myself some space, I'm going to expand those brackets. So that's b squared over 4a squared, 2 squared a squared, and plus c. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of this set of brackets by expanding, so multiplying everything inside by a. So I'll have a times x plus b over 2a squared minus a times this means I'm going to have one less a on the bottom. So I'll have b over 4a plus c equals 0. Alright, so now I'm going to move this whole thing to the other side. So on the left hand side, I've just got that equals positive b on 4a plus c. So that should be a minus c. And now instead of just writing c here, I'm actually going to try and combine these two terms into one fraction. So instead of c, I can have c over 1, and then if I multiply top and bottom by 4a, then I'll have a common denominator. So 4a here, 4ac, and 4a, which means that that's now 4a on the bottom and b minus 4ac here. Oh, and I forgot the square. Okay, and that's still all equal to 0. Alright, so now I need to divide both sides by a. So on the left-hand side, I've just got x plus b over 2a squared is equal to b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Because if I divide by a, that means I have one more a on the bottom. Alrighty. Now I have to square root. So I have to remember that every time I square root, I'm going to have a positive and negative square root. So I can do, the square root just gets rid of the squared and the brackets. And on this side, I have to add in a square root and go plus or minus that square root. Alright, so I can actually simplify that a bit. Now got x plus b over 2a is equal to plus or minus Now the square root of the top, nothing's going to change. It's just b squared minus 4ac. But on the bottom, I can see that 4a squared is actually the square of 2a. So the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. So it's just 2a on the bottom. So finally, I can move this b over 2a to the other side. And because I noticed that the denominator is the same, I can just combine it all into one fraction. So my solution is x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. And all of that is over 2a. And I'm done. So you may actually recognize this as quadratic formula. So we've actually derived quadratic formula using completing the square. So all we did was apply completing the square to our general formula, and we ended up with quadratic formula. So that's actually what our next video is on. It's on how to use quadratic formula, but really it's giving us exactly the same solutions that all our other methods gave us, particularly the completing the square method. Alrighty, so that's all. I hope you had a bit of fun with that and you were able to follow through the working out. I know it's a lot of algebra there, but if you stuck through it, good on you. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, you can always get extra one-to-one help at Can Do Teach. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.